and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and today I'm going to be talking about weird things I do when an agent has my manuscript, also known as dumb shit I don't recommend. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm an aspiring author of YA fantasy stories and also a musician. Here I make writing-related videos, book talks, and bookish songs, among other things. But today I'm going to be sharing some of the weird things that I do when an agent has my manuscript. So what I mean by that is if you are unfamiliar with the process to traditional publication, what happens is an author will write a book, then they'll send a query letter, which is like the little blurb you'll find on the back of a book type thing, to an agent. If they're interested in reading more, they will then request your manuscript. This can either be part of it or the whole thing. So what I'm talking about in today's video is weird things that I get up to when I've reached that second stage and an agent has requested my book after enjoying my query letter. Essentially, this is the period of time when you just wait and you hope that the agent is willing to offer you representation, because if they do that, then they will help sell your book to publishers and you'll be published. So this means I am currently unagented, so I am just querying and hoping to find literary representation at this point in time. Number one, the first thing I do when an agent has requested my manuscript is excessively stalk them on Query Tracker. If you haven't heard of Query Tracker, it's a very excellent, in my opinion, website which helps you keep track of all of the agents that you've queried and what their response has been. Part of this website includes a timeline function where you can see where your query falls in their query queue. Obviously, you can't see all the people that have queried them, you can only see people that report their queries on Query Tracker, but it gives you a good sense of when the agent might be getting to your query. Once you've put in the agent's response, so rejection, request, or if they don't respond, you can close it. It marks it as green or red on Query Tracker, so if you look at the timeline, you can see who else has been rejected and who else has been requested, and then eventually you can also see when an author has signed with this agent. So when an agent has my manuscript, I stalk this timeline excessively because I'm trying to see what other types of books they've requested, if I might be in competition with someone, if the agent has just offered representation to someone else. I don't recommend this, okay? It's very neurotic and not very healthy. Essentially, it means I waste a lot of time looking at things that actually don't really reveal any helpful information because it's entirely subjective, and just because an agent requests another YA fantasy doesn't really necessarily affect my chances, and just because they've offered representation to someone else or they haven't in 6 months also doesn't really affect how much they're going to love my book. So I don't recommend you do this. It will just lead to you feeling a bit insane. Number two, I refuse to look at my manuscript. Now, most people recommend you don't excessively edit your manuscript when an agent already has it, because then what might happen is they might offer representation, and by that point, the book that they've read might be very different from the book that you've then edited and created, and they don't want that new edit. They wanted the original one. So most of the time, it's recommended that you don't do a lot of editing when an agent has your manuscript. But that said, to not look at it at all is a bit weird. Maybe you don't want to obsess over it, but it's nice to kind of like double check it for spelling errors or like those kind of things. Do like small tweaks to improve minor things, but I can't do that. I can't bring myself to look at it because I know if I find one spelling error, I'm gonna freak the fuck out and think that my chances are completely ruined. This is probably not true. I really doubt agents reject manuscripts purely for a handful of grammatical or spelling errors. I think a lot of them would be an issue because it'll look very unpolished and make it hard to read, but I'm assuming if an agent has requested your manuscript, they've read a couple of sample pages and like what they see so far. So spelling and grammar is not a big deal if it's a couple things here and there, but I know that would overwhelm me, so I don't look at it at all. Number three, I have an inability to work on anything else. This is also dumb. Like, one of the primary things you should be doing when an agent has your manuscript is working on a different project. Even if your book is intended as the first in the series, you don't necessarily want to write book 2 before an agent has signed you. It's possible your book will never be turned into a series, or if you write the second book and then you have to make a ton of edits to the first book because of either the agent or publisher, then you have to entirely rewrite the second book. So you do want to be working on another project that's completely unrelated to the one that you're querying, but I can't even manage to do that. Every time I open my computer, I use the Scrivener program. Every time I open Scrivener, it's this beautiful blank page organized by chapters, and I'm ready and I'm excited about it, and then I just sit there and think about my other project. But I don't edit it because I can't look at that either. So I just sit there and stare at the screen. Number 4, start imagining which part of my book the agent is going to fall hopelessly in love with. Recently I saw an agent tweet on Twitter, obviously where else would you be tweeting, that when she signs someone, one of the things she likes to do is highlight the part of the book that made her want to offer representation. So something like, this part here, this is where I fell in love and knew that we were gonna work together. Ever since I read that, I started thinking about the agents that have my manuscript, and I'm like, which part of my book are they going to love? Which part is the good part? Which part will make them fall in love? This is one of the more enjoyable pastimes I have when an agent has my manuscript. But that said, the next thing I do, number 5, is start thinking that the entire thing is trash. The minute I start trying to imagine which part of my book the agent might fall in love with, the immediate next thought I have is that there is no part that an agent could possibly fall in love with, and the whole thing is hot garbage. Obviously this book is shitty, obviously they're gonna hate everything, there's nothing good about it, I can't string 2 words together, and all of my characters are dumb as shit. And that said, it likely isn't true, because if an agent has requested your manuscript, most of the time that means that they like what they saw, either in the query letter or the sample pages that you probably sent along with the query letter. So the book is not hot garbage. Probably needs work, but it's not hot garbage. And finally, the 6th thing I do when an agent has my manuscript is refresh my email constantly. And when I say constantly, I mean constantly. There will be times when I'm sitting there at work, and I'm currently working as a receptionist, so it's very easy. And I just go like this on my phone, refresh, 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 especially when I'm doing number 1 and I'm looking at the agent's query tracker and I can see that they've rejected somebody else after me. Then I'm like, oh, maybe they're looking through their request piles, so they're going to be communicating with me soon. Even though they told me that I wouldn't hear back from them for 12 weeks and it's only been 4, I'm still gonna be refreshing that email constantly in case they just happen to offer literary representation extremely early. It's really healthy. That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching and learning a bit about my weird habits. Leave a comment below telling me about some of your weird habits, either when an agent has your manuscript or just when you're writing or somebody else is reading your book. As always, I love you all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.